See? Very excited to grow it. It's a hefty amount of seeds, like a pallet of dirt. Sign me up. GMOs have started to hit home gardens. Hello, welcome back to Sage and Stone Homestead. My name is Heather. As you can see behind me, we have been growing all winter long. We've got a few things that we've been able to harvest here and there, but the winter garden for us here in southwestern Kentucky is nothing like the spring and summer garden. That's where our really big harvests come in, and it's time to start those seeds. So today I'm going to be focusing purely on tomatoes. I received a package in the mail with some really awesome varieties that I have never tried before. One of the goals that I have this summer is to turn this high tunnel back into a nightshade tunnel. It was a nightshade tunnel a couple years ago and it was so amazing, and I cannot wait to bring that back. So in my little box here is the seeds that I was sent. I have a little cheat sheet inside the box here that's gonna help me explain to you how to get the best deal on these seeds. These are all heirloom seeds, which has a lot of value. These are also non-GMO. So that term did not used to matter for home gardeners. Anything that's really available as far as seeds go, either online or at your box stores, until very recently, none of those seeds were going to be GMO. It was not something that you could obtain as a home gardener. That's something that if you had a contract for a really large field, like a big monoculture, that's something that you could buy for that field. But now GMOs have started to hit home gardens, actually in the form of a purple tomato. And so this kind of labeling is going to be a lot more important than it used to be, and I think a lot of companies sort of saw that coming, and so they jumped the gun, rightfully so, in labeling these seeds non-GMO, because now it matters. So these are heirloom and non-GMO, and I've been asked a few times what the difference between heirloom and like hybrid is. And really an heirloom tomato, or an heirloom variety of any kind of vegetable or fruit, is a variety that has been passed down. I think the requirement is that it's at least 20 years old. I'll have to double check myself on that, but it's something that classically breeds true. Now, I've grown hybrids in the past. There's nothing wrong with hybrids. Hybrids does not equal GMO. It's not something that is actually modified. It's a lot like what I'm doing with my goats. So I have purebred La Mancha goats and I have purebred Nigerian dwarfs. When I cross the two, I have a hybrid animal. There's nothing like really genetically modified about that. It's just crossbreeding. Same thing with hybrid types of plants. There's nothing really wrong with it. A lot of times people will hybridize varieties to try to get some kind of benefit out of it. The good thing about heirloom tomatoes is that when you save your seeds back from your heirloom plants, you can know that you're going to be getting this same like tomato out of it. When you save seeds back from hybrids, that's just going to be anybody's guess what you get. You're not going to get something that looks like the parent plant because those seeds have not been stabilized. But you don't have to worry about that with these. All of these seeds are from So Right Seed Company. I've been working with this company for just over a year, and I've been so pleased with their products. One of the things that was most important to me was that it be USA based, and even the seed packets here are printed in the USA. So very cool. All right, so let's go through the seeds. Now, this particular pack that I had clipped together is from the Tomato 10 collection on the So Right Seeds website. So we have a classic here, a Cherokee Purple. It says the complex flavor is mostly sweet with hints of smoky and acidic note. Let the fruit ripen on the plant for the best flavor. Indeterminate but relatively short vines. So that is really good to know. The information on the back of these seed packets is very valuable. So let's say I wanted to grow this here in the greenhouse and hope for it to reach the top of the greenhouse. This one may not do it. So maybe this is something to put somewhere else. This one looks very similar. This is a variety I had never heard of before, Black Crim. It says a prized heirloom from the Crimean Peninsula. This indeterminate variety produces deep maroon colored beefsteak tomatoes with bold, complex flavor and a firm, juicy texture. Both of these tomatoes have this purple hue to them, which in this seed packet describes it as more of a lending to a more smoky flavor, and I can confirm that is the case. And also this coloring is an indication of a different type of nutrient. There's anthocyanins inside this fruit, and the purple coloring tells us that. Very cool. Here's another cool one. Kellogg's breakfast tomato. This is one I've heard a lot about and I've never grown before, but we're gonna be planting it soon. Indeterminate orange beefsteak tomato produces heavy yields. 1 to 2 pound tomatoes have firm, meaty flesh with thin skins, excellent for slicing. The flavor has a tangy sweetness balanced with just enough acid. I really like yellow tomatoes. A lot of people don't, but I enjoy them a lot, and I have not grown enough of them. Here we go. Classic Roma tomato. These are often used for like sauces and things because they generally have a more meaty texture with a little bit less liquid. This one says it's a determinate variety with compact vines traditionally grown for tomato paste and sauce. An abundant harvest of thick-walled, meaty, bright red egg-shaped tomatoes about 3 inches long with small seed cavities, great for canning or eating fresh. Similarly, we have the San Marzano tomato, and this one is really common for people who want a great depth of flavor. This one is really common in Italian cooking. It says San Marzano is a famous sauce tomato long cultivated in Italy. Small seed cavities with thick, dense, meaty flesh helps this tomato cook quickly into a rich tomato sauce. Large plants are disease resistant and produce an abundance of 5 to 6 ounce fruits. So that's something that's really great to know for me growing this here in the greenhouse. We are planning on getting more ventilation fans, but sometimes where there's humidity, there can be quite an abundance of disease, and it sounds like this one is going to be a little bit more resistant to that than some other varieties. And it doesn't contain as much liquid as some other varieties, so cooking it down into a sauce isn't going to take as much time. You're going to hear that. That's the military training. Sorry about that. We live right next to an army base. Something I've never seen before, very excited to grow it, a yellow brandywine. I've seen the classic red brandywine tomatoes, had no idea that this existed. It says it's a close cousin to the famous pink brandywine tomato, but with a golden yellow beefsteak type fruit weighing up to 2 pounds. Plants have fuzzy potato leaf foliage and indeterminate vines. It's a heavy producer with sweet, tangy, low acid flavor. I just love like the fluting, the shape of this tomato. This one has a very different shape, and it says the Marglobe tomato is disease resistant, determinate plant that produces deep red globe-shaped tomatoes, 7 to 10 ounces in size. It was first introduced in 1925 and has earned an enduring reputation as an excellent canning tomato. I think that this may not be the first determinate tomato that we've come across. The difference between a determinate tomato and an indeterminate tomato, like this yellow brandywine, is that the indeterminate tomatoes grow to an indeterminate size and produce an indeterminate amount of fruit. As long as you're feeding it and as long as it remains disease-free, it's gonna keep growing and it's gonna keep producing. Very often with determinate varieties of tomatoes, they're gonna get to a determined height, in my experience around 4 feet tall. They're going to be bushier plants that tend to put on all of their fruit all at once. That's probably what helps make this a good canning variety, because you don't have to wait very long to, amass enough to create a whole canning day. All of these should be coming on at about the same time. This one is also very intriguing to me. Just by looking at it, it reminds me a lot of the Belgian Giant, which is one of my favorite tomatoes to grow. This is the Ponderosa Pink, a large 1 to 2 pound beefsteak tomato with low acidity and very few seeds. This tomato has a beautiful deep pink hue and compact, I can read. This tomato has a beautiful deep pink hue and complex flavor that is good for slicing or cooking. Indeterminate vines, 85 days to maturity. Rio Grande, a determinate variety with compact plants and red plum-shaped tomatoes that are excellent for processing or just to pop in your mouth. A sweet flavor and above average yields make this a great choice for home gardeners. I imagine these would be awesome, like for a salad tomato. Those look like a good classic. And then this is a fun one. We really like these. The yellow pear tomato. My kids call them the Jerry tomato, like Jimmy and Jerry Gourd from VeggieTales. Old heirloom variety with adorable yellow pear-shaped tomatoes with a mild, slightly tangy flavor. Very productive, indeterminate vines that can grow 12 feet tall. It needs a strong trellis. This fun tomato adds something extra to your salads or party platter. We found that this variety, at least on our farm, is also pretty disease resistant. So these 10 varieties make up the Tomato 10 pack on the So Right Seeds website. There's another pack that I wanted to showcase for you that is the Cherry Tomato pack, and that does include this pear tomato. So this is the first one. We just talked about that. And the other tomatoes are the white cherry tomato. Now this one reminds me a lot of the yellow currant tomato that I've grown here on my farm for years. I don't actually start it from seed anymore because it just comes back every year all over our farm. This looks a lot like it. It says creamy white to yellow cherry tomatoes averaging 1 to 2 ounces apiece. Yellow color develops more with sun exposure and maturity. Tomatoes resist cracking and have a sweet flavor. Indeterminate vines produce good yields. And that's something that is really special about this particular tomato. Oftentimes yellow tomatoes have quite a thin skin and they can tend to crack, so that's a good benefit of this one. This one's very pretty. Large red cherry. A 19th century heirloom, indeterminate variety with abundant yields of sweet and juicy silver dollar sized red cherry tomatoes that grow in clusters. Vigorous vines require a trellis for best production. Excellent salad tomato. This one's cool too, a bicolor cherry. Indeterminate tomato reaching up to 8 feet tall. Produces 1 to 2 inch cherry tomatoes that are orange with a rosy blush towards the bottom end. Their sweet flavor is exceptional and juicy. I really enjoy tomatoes that have 2 different colors like that, 2 or more. It's really cool, I love it. Speaking of black cherry tomato, we've grown this a few times, and it says, if I could only grow one tomato variety, this would be it. Outrageously productive, indeterminate plant, produces dark cherry-sized tomatoes with a deliciously complex, sweet, smoky, savory flavor. See, it's because of those anthocyanins. It's hard to walk past this one without snagging a few tomatoes for an in-the-garden snack. That's really true of any of these, in my opinion. And this one's really cool. I'm really excited about this one. We've never grown an orange cherry tomato before. It says, enjoy the exceptionally high yields of this indeterminate tomato. Orange cherry's vigorous vines produce large clusters of sweet and slightly tangy 1-inch fruits, bursting with summer flavor. Really cool. And if I didn't mention it before, there are quite a few seeds in the bottom of these packets. And that's not all. So don't you worry, we have a lot more. See? This is something I didn't know existed. We saw the Cherokee purple, but they also have a Cherokee green. The exceptional flavor of the Cherokee green makes it a standout among green tomatoes. This indeterminate variety yields medium 8 to 15 ounce beefsteak fruits that ripen to a bright green with an amber hue on the blossom end when ripe. See that there? That's really neat. Just like the yellow brandywine, I didn't know that the black brandywine existed. This is probably going to also have a smoky flavor. Potato leaf plants yield an abundance of large, dusky red beefsteak style fruits. These tomatoes have a firm but juicy texture paired with a deep, complex flavor. Black brandywine's exceptional flavor is perfect for eating fresh and for making into salsa. Good suggestion. Just love the shape of those. Here's a pretty one, a striped paste tomato. I didn't know these existed. It says open pollinated, indeterminate Roman style plum tomato. 4 to 5 inch fruits are elongated with bright red skin that has striking golden orange stripes, ideal for sauces and pastes. And ideal for just looking pretty. I love it. I love pretty things. I have wanted to grow an ox heart style tomato for quite a few years, and I don't know what my hang up has been, but I have no excuse this year. I have the seeds. This says that it's a vigorous producer of 1 to 2 pound tomatoes with a beautiful heart shape. Flesh is firm and dense with an intense tomato flavor. Excellent for slicing or tomato paste, indeterminate. Intense tomato flavor. I'm excited to try that. Another really cool tomato with a lot of fluting on it, the hillbilly tomato. Indeterminate beefsteak style tomato produces enormous 1 to 3 pound fruits. Tomatoes have orange and red mottled skin with streaks of pink and streaks of red within. An excellent slicing tomato with sweet flavor and low acidity. So I've grown tomatoes, yellow tomatoes that have a little bit of streaking. I think one was called the rainbow tomato, and there's also the pineapple tomato. This sounds a lot like that, except for a lot bigger, 1 to 3 pound fruits. That's massive. I don't think that we've necessarily grown super huge tomatoes before. I've grown them over a pound for sure. I actually had one Belgian Giant last year that was massive, but I've got to remember how big. I don't think it was 2 pounds, but it was probably close. And we have our classic beefsteak tomato. A lot of these have said that they are beefsteak style. Well, this is the actual beefsteak. An heirloom variety with a wide shape that can grow to 6 inches in diameter. Wonderful, meaty slicing tomato that may hang over the sides of your toast. Has a classic red tomato flavor. Indeterminate vines need support and will produce until the first frost. Challenge accepted. And maybe even longer than that here in the greenhouse. That's gonna be really cool. If we can get tomatoes past October in here, I've never tried that. Not on purpose. So I did have a cherry tomato in the greenhouse that I think produced up until December, because we didn't have really hard frost that came into the greenhouse till then. That was pretty cool. I like the name of this one, the Homestead tomato. A semi-determinate variety that is very heat tolerant and reliably sets fruit in high temperatures. Mid-sized 8 to 12 ounce red tomatoes have a great flavor and are ideal for sandwiches, salads, and preserving. Crack resistant. This sounds like an all-around good tomato, especially in our area. I was talking to someone earlier and I told them, like, even with a shade cloth on, in the heat of summer, especially if there's no breeze, the greenhouse will get to 120 degrees easy. And so this guy looks like it may hold up to that. The Jubilee tomato, really pretty color. Indeterminate plants produce high yields of 3-inch golden orange fruits with meaty walls and small seed cavities. Jubilee tomatoes have low acidity and a mild flavor. AAS winner. That's also a color you don't really see in the garden very often. The Rutgers tomato looks a lot like the Homestead tomato. It says, this heirloom has been a favorite since its introduction at Rutgers University in 1934. It has a vivid red color and thick flesh with an outstanding flavor that is excellent for both canning and slicing. Thick, tall vines will produce an abundance of tomatoes with an initial crop and a later flushes of fruit. So it sounds like they put on a lot at once and then you get some trickle harvests after that. These look very classic. I kind of wonder if this is the ones that they sell at our local Amish store. They look like that. Just perfect little red globes. This one I've heard a lot about and I have never grown. I cannot wait to grow it this year. So the Mortgage Lifter tomato has a really cool name for a really cool reason. The famous tomato that helped to pay off the mortgage of West Virginian MC Radiator Charlie Biles when he developed it in the 1930s. These enormous beefsteaks are regularly over 2 pounds with meaty red flesh and sweet, rich flavor. Cannot wait to try it. This one's gorgeous. We've grown this every year. The Black Beauty tomato. A unique heirloom variety known for its rich, dark, purple-black color and a smoky, sweet flavor. These large beefsteak type tomatoes are perfect for slicing salads and sandwiches. They get really deep purple like that on the tops when they're exposed to sunlight. If they're a little bit more shaded, they'll be a little bit less intense in color. So they included some fun little varieties here at the end. And this one is cool. If I didn't have my green stalk full of strawberries right now, that I would consider putting these in there. The Tiny Tim tomato. A favorite for containers and small spaces, Tiny Tim is a quick-growing, fast-producing dwarf heirloom tomato that reaches only 12 inches tall. Each plant yields an abundance of 1 to 2 inch tomatoes with a tangy, sweet flavor that never fails to delight. I've got to find somewhere to put these. That is too cool. I've grown small tomatoes before. It was the Top Hat, Orange Hat tomatoes. I grew them inside a little aquaponics situation in my house. That was neat. These would work for that. Something I've wanted to grow but have not yet. This is a tomatillo. It's kind of like a ground cherry or a husk cherry from what I've been told. Like a green tomato. It says easy to grow, compact tomatillo plant matures early with high yields. Tomatillos have a tangy flavor that is highly prized in Mexican cooking. These tasty little fruits are the base for salsa verde. I just like the way they look. They almost look like they belong as a Halloween decoration. There's a lot of seeds in that one too. I've grown a few types of ground cherry here on the homestead every year, but never this one. These look really deep orange compared to the ones that I've grown, and the flavor description is quite cool. It says ground cherry Physalis pruinosa is an endangered heirloom that is making a comeback. This rare tomatillo produces an abundance of golden fruits with a pineapple vanilla flavor. Sign me up. We're gonna be putting these in the garden for sure. There's a bunch of seeds in there, so we will not be hurting for plants for sure. So this is only a slight sampling of what So Right Seeds has to offer on their website. Last year I got what's called the Homesteaders Collection. I think it was 35 seeds all in one. And that's one of the things about So Right Seeds. So you'll go onto their website and you may notice that each seed is usually over $3, sometimes close to $4 each seed packet. There are a lot of seeds in each pack, so I think that the value is absolutely there, especially when you realize that you really only have to buy the seed one time, and then you can just perpetually save your own seed back because these are heirloom seeds. But the real value is when you buy them in their collections and then stack our coupon code. So here's how you can finagle some of these for $1.63 a pack. So the tomato 10 collection is $17.99, and then the cherry tomato collection is $10.99. Together that's $28.98, so you've gotten your way to free shipping. It's only $25 minimum for free shipping. And then you stack our coupon code, which is SageStone10, and it knocks off another few dollars. And then you get 16 packs of tomatoes for $26.09. Divide that by the 16 packs and you get $1.63 per pack. That is a very good deal. Side note too, as I'm thinking about it while I'm potting up in the potting soil. So hello, this is Heather from the future. The Homesteaders pack that I talked about before, that's 35 packs. When you put that in your cart and then you add our coupon code and then when you have free shipping, those seeds are 90 cents a pack. So we're gonna get to planting these tomatoes right now, but I do have an affiliate link in the description box and in the pinned comment. Don't forget to plug in my coupon code so you can save those extra few dollars. So we are just about 6 or 7 weeks before our estimated last frost. I'm starting my tomatoes a little bit later than I normally would. Usually I like to start them around Valentine's Day. I got distracted this year, so I'm about a week late. It is not going to be a big deal at all. It's not even going to be a little deal. They did recently change our estimated last frost date to be earlier, and I don't trust it for anything. I think it's like April 8th when it previously was around April 19th. We very, very frequently will see a frost in later April. So I am just going to be planning to plant my tomatoes when I normally do. I'm going to be ignoring the new recommendation. And so starting them now actually gives these plants an extra week or two to be in these pots. So this is what I'm going to be planting in. These are Bootstrap Farmer trays. I believe these are 2.5-inch pots and they're quite deep. Usually the general rule of thumb is you can get about 1 month of growth or dwell time of each plant per inch of pot. So if you have a 2-inch pot, you can expect about 2 months worth of lifespan for that plant before it starts to get kind of choked out in its roots and starts to suffer. So I have some soil here next to me. I'm gonna be scooping that up. This particular tray, it's a 10-20 tray. It's because it's 10 inches wide and 20 inches long. And if it's 36 of these little starter pots here. And I know that one of these trays is going to get me 2 rows here in the greenhouse of something that needs to be planted about 18 to 24 inches apart, which is the case for tomatoes. What I'm starting the seeds in today is just a simple potting mix. You can use a seed starting mix, but when you plant in just something that's labeled as a seed starting mix, it's really important to realize that there's no nutrition in that soil. It's basically just either peat or cocoa coir, something that is really nice and fine, does retain a lot of moisture. There's nothing wrong with it. But the seeds that you put in that soil only have as much energy within that seed in order to sprout and put out their first leaves. After that, they need the nutrition from the sun and the nutrition from the soil to keep on growing. So if you're noticing that you've planted some seeds and they just kind of stopped, they probably need to be fed. And if you don't have potting soil to pot them up into, you can get away with diluting like a liquid fertilizer. Dilute it by half of what the instructions say on the bottle or on the box, and then you can bottom water with that once a week. That's just going to get you by until you can get some good soil. So it's not really a long-term solution. I find that potting soil has enough fine texture to it to be suitable for seed starting, and it does also have the nutrition, so I just use that. I used to pack the bottom part of the pot with potting soil and then the top part with seed starting mix, but it's really not necessary. I've sort of decided the seeds that I want to start. We're just gonna have to decide officially together and just put them in the dirt and make a commitment. Ponderosa Pink. I really would like to know if these are as much like the Belgian Giant as I think they are. I don't have any like seed markers with me, so I'm just going to be using this video to help me remember what's where. I guess the red one in the corner starts the Ponderosa Pink. I'm gonna put a couple seeds per pot here just to kind of ensure that we can get germination. I'm not afraid of doing that because, as I mentioned, these are heirloom seeds and I can save back as many as I want from what we get throughout the season. There, the first seeds are planted. I think I'll do 2 pots of each variety. So 2 Ponderosa Pink. I'd really like to try the different colors of brandy wines. Definitely gonna grow the San Marzanos. That's a hefty amount of seeds in there. See that? Tomato seeds are very forgiving too, or the seedlings are. So if we do get a whole bunch of germination from me planting like 3 and 4 seeds per pot, you really can tease those different plants apart and put them in their own pots. And the tomato tolerates that quite well. Actually, quite a few people will sprinkle like 30 different seeds in pots like this and split them up. It's a good way to start seeds in a small space. But you do have to think about what you're going to do when they need separating. So you do need to upgrade this vase eventually. Classic aromas, got to do it. Kellogg's Breakfast. So I have heard that this variety, the Kellogg's Breakfast, is very similar to like the Dr. Witchie's. It's another yellow, very fluted, tasty heirloom tomato. The black Krim tomato, I think I'm gonna plant this one instead of the cherry purple this year, the Cherokee purple, because I've grown Cherokee purple in the past and I'd like to make some space for things I've never tried before. Got Black Beauties. This is one of those classics that always has a home in my garden. The Mortgage Lifter. This one I think intrigues me the most. Maybe. The pink ox heart though, it's a tie. Hillbilly. There's the pink ox heart. Oh, too many. Oh no, I don't need that many. I would like a pallet of dirt.
Okay, I can do that with this trailer.
That's exciting. Love you too. Bye. That's exciting. We recently filled a couple raised beds that we got with Kellogg brand organic soil, and that's the best looking soil that I've seen in a really long time. That is not what is in these pots. This is just Miracle-Gro. There are some woody bits, which is really common of what you'll see nowadays, but the Kellogg's was so nice that we're getting an entire pallet of it because this greenhouse is going to turn into all raised beds and we're gonna need it. Anywho, back to planting. Striped paste tomatoes. Brandywine Black, I gotta see what it's like. Those potato leaves, it's really cool looking. They're kind of broad looking. They look exactly like they're described, like a potato leaf versus a tomato leaf. Both are in the nightshade family. Cherokee Green, very, very intrigued by these. I keep saying that, but I mean, it's true. I'm going to be planting a couple tomatillo plants. This is going to be brand new to me. I imagine it's just like growing tomatoes, maybe like growing peppers, like nightshades in general. Ooh, oh, those seeds, they're funny. They look like ground cherry seeds. Let me show you. Aren't those cute? Those look just like the ground cherry seeds. So I got these 2 left of the things that I really wanted to plant, and I have 4 cups left over. I'm probably gonna want more than just a couple of these tiny Tim tomatoes, and I will definitely want more than just a couple ground cherries. So that sowing method that I talked about before, where people will just scatter as many seeds as they want to, around 15 or 30 on these 2-inch pots, and then split them out later, I'm gonna do that with these to maximize my space. So we've got these little baby ground cherry seeds, and I'm just gonna be sprinkling these along the top like that. This is a lot of them. I'm probably still gonna have to thin them out. And the tiny Tim tomato seeds are actually a little bit bigger than I expected. Oop. One of those went in the ground cherry pot. It's okay. Sprinkle those on the top. Now what I'm going to do with these is just do a light covering of soil on top of these. The seeds are very small and I don't want to cover them too much. Like I mentioned at the beginning of planting, these seeds only have as much energy within them to reach the surface of the soil, and then after that they need the sunlight and the nutrition from the soil to grow. But most importantly, the sunlight. So we don't want to cover them too deeply, or we may think that we got no germination when in fact we probably did get germination. They just didn't have the energy that they needed to go through the amount of soil that I placed on top of them. So a general rule of thumb when it comes to planting any seed is you want to plant them twice as deep as they are wide. I got that information from Jess over at Roots and Refuge, and that has really taken a lot of stress out of my seed starting time. There. Moisten the GoPro battery. Good idea. Normally I will start my seeds that are frost tender, like tomatoes and peppers, etc., inside my house. It has been extremely warm here, much warmer than normal, and the long range forecast kind of holds that to be true. And for, you know, as long as I can see, which is a couple weeks out. So I would really like to keep these seeds out here in the greenhouse. My only concern is that it is dipping a little bit cool at night. So usually plants that grow well during the warm weather like a soil temperature of around 50 degrees. We are going to be seeing temperatures in the low 40s, and without an electricity source out here in the greenhouse, it's really hard for me to run anything like a heat mat out here until I realize I have an energy source that's portable. So we're gonna run this heat mat with my Bluetti. Yeah, so it looks like the heat mat is only drawing 17 watts, which is nothing. So that is really cool. And I've got different plugs here. There's 4. I could probably run many more heat mats, which is really exciting. It's already starting to feel warm. I am going to be watering up here very carefully, but still I want to protect my Bluetti. When I planted the seeds, I had them in this really nice, I don't know what it's called, but it's like a segmented tray. It looks like this. It really helps when you're transporting the 10-20 trays around. It really helps the seedlings not like fall over, and it does a little bit of air pruning. So if you water in the bottom, the roots can like scoot down in and give them a little bit more kind of like room to stretch out and get to the water. But this is gonna suspend my pots up above the bottom of the 10-20 tray, and I'd like for them to be in contact with it so they can be in contact with the heat. So I'm gonna transfer these out, but I've got to do it exactly as they are in here. I'm not gonna know what we planted. There they go. The tomatoes of the season are planted. Now I'm sure I will be planting some more varieties later on. I do have some other favorites like the Belgian Giant that I never want to be without. So we're going to be planting those and some peppers sometime very, very soon. And I will be sharing my garden plan with you, the official one. I think I've figured it out. So if you are not subscribed already, please do so and stick around. It's going to be a really good year.